Welcome to the Opposition Media Briefing this Sunday, 12th of May, 2024. Today, our presenter is MP Saddam Hosien, Shadow for the Ministry of the Attorney General. Thank you for joining our broadcast today. We will begin shortly, and in the meanwhile, please share the live.
कब दूर गगन से चंदा कब दूर किरण से खुशबू कब दूर पवन से कब दूर बहार चमन से
ये बंधन तो प्यार का बंधन है।
सूरज कब दूर गगन से चंदा कब दूर किरण से खुशबू कब दूर पवन से कब दूर बहार चमन से
ये बंधन तो प्यार का बंधन
है। As you walk with us to the part of life, you will never have to walk alone. Come on!
When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm, there's a rising sun.
Look for the rising sun.
And the sweet silver songs of the sky.
Put God in front, we'll walk behind.
Walk on through the wind. Walk on through the rain.
Door to door and hand in
Though
hand.
your dreams be tossed and blown, walk on, walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone.
So put your hands up high and let's reach for the sky for the rising sun. Come walk with us. We'll walk with you. And you'll never walk alone. Never walk alone. Never walk alone. Never walk alone. You'll never walk alone with the UNC.
The new Couva Children's Hospital will offer critical medical care to both children and adults, with a 3-story bed tower dedicated to pediatrics and women's care containing 80 beds, and a second 3-story bed tower dedicated to adult patients containing 150 beds. From the moment you enter through the hospital's front doors, you will be greeted with the sights of a spectacular lobby flooded with natural light streaming in through the overhead canopy. As we venture past the reception area, the ground floor opens up into the Pediatric Clinic and Children's Rehab Center, located in the Pediatric Tower, and the Adult Outpatient Clinic and Pharmacy, located in the Adult Tower.
This is the pediatric waiting area in the Pediatric Outpatient Clinic at Cougar Children's Hospital. This area was designed to be fun and engaging with age-appropriate furniture to limit the anxiety of the guardians and those in their care. We're now taking you through a part of the Pediatric Outpatient Clinic on the ground floor at the Cougar Children's Hospital. This area has 11 examination rooms, which allow facilities for our doctors and nurses to undergo medical outpatient clinics and minor treatment and dressing.
We believe that the management of emergency cases should be as least stressful on our staff, the visitors, and you, our patients. This is why we have dedicated 3 specific areas for entrance into the hospital: adult emergency, pediatric emergency, and our trauma corridor.
This is also why any child coming in through the Children's Emergency Department will be attended to by doctors and nurses specially trained in pediatric care. Welcome to the Pediatric Emergency Department at the Cougar Children's Hospital. I'm walking you through the pediatric waiting area. In this area, we have 3 registration desks where your pediatric emergency cases will be dealt with. This area is a triage area. This is where your assessment will be done, and then you'll be further directed to the more appropriate location for further assessment and treatment. Within the Pediatric Emergency Department, there are 5 examination rooms, 5 treatment bays, and 2 resuscitation areas. Let me show you a pediatric examination room. Within this area, your specialized doctors and nurses will examine a patient after an emergency. This is a procedural stretcher, and here you have a head wall with medical gases and places to plug in your specialized medical equipment. On this area, you have a diagnostic head wall with your basic tools for diagnostic treatment. And this is an examination light, which you'll use to further examine your patient. We're now in pediatric internal medicine. This can be found on level 1 of the pediatric bed tower at Cougar Children's Hospital. On this floor, we have 12 ward rooms with either a mixture of 4-bed wards or single-bed wards. Also, the nurses' stations are efficiently designed so that they can monitor each corridor individually. On level 2 of the pediatric bed tower, you can find the pediatric intensive care units. We have 6 of these on this floor, and they offer special services for patients who cannot be in a regular ward. These patients will require continuous monitoring and the administering of special medications. We also have specialized medical equipment such as ventilation and critical care beds and patient monitoring. These critical care beds offer on-bed weighing mechanisms as well as chair adjustments, feet adjustments, and back rests. On level 2, we have the labor delivery ward. We have 4 of these rooms, which offers facilities for the full delivery process, from labor and delivery to neonatal recovery and postnatal care. We also have facilities for the father or close relatives to assist with the pregnant mother. This is the neonatal intensive care unit. This is where, at the Cougar Children's Hospital, we will offer care for our nation's most vulnerable. What you see here is a neonatal incubator. This offers a cocoon-like environment with optimal thermoregulation and protection from external factors. At the Cougar Children's Hospital, we have 2 dedicated nursery areas with a centrally.
Good morning, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen who have joined us on our weekly Sunday media press briefing, outlining some of the issues affecting the governance of Trinidad and Tobago under the auspices of the Leader of the Opposition. Today, our press conference coincides with a very special day in Trinidad and Tobago and in the world in particular, where we celebrate our mothers. So on behalf of the opposition, the United National Congress, myself, I would like to extend a warm, hearty Mother's Day greetings to all of the mothers in Trinidad and Tobago, in the UNC in particular. The staff here who are with us, they have left their moms, and they're here just to ensure that we have this briefing so that we can bring the facts and try to fight for good governance in Trinidad and Tobago. And even the members of the media here who also are mothers, I would like to say Happy Mother's Day to you too. And our political leader, of course. Also, on this very celebratory day coincides the celebration of our nurses. That is the International Nurses Day. And we would like to also extend our warmest greetings to all of the nurses in Trinidad and Tobago. And on days like these, it really gives us as public officials that level of activism in order to make representation for those persons who play a very critical and vital role in our society. And we, as the opposition, have continued to fight for better wages, better conditions for our nation nurses. So this morning, I thank you again for joining us on this weekly press briefing, and I will be dealing in particular with two very concerning and major topics that is affecting Trinidad and Tobago right now. The first being the constitutional impasse with respect to the Auditor General's report for the financial year of 2023. And the second issue that I wish to address is one where there is a collapse and an infiltration of our national security apparatus, in particular the intelligence agencies. So I would first like to address you members of the media on the constitutional impasse with respect to the Auditor General's report. And just to briefly recap, when the Parliament met, I believe on the 28th of April, the report of the Auditor General was placed on the order paper, and the Minister of Finance disrespected the House and the people of Trinidad and Tobago and failed to lay that particular report in the Parliament, meaning to make that report public after the Auditor General had completed a constitutional duty to audit the accounts of Trinidad and Tobago for 2023, sent the report to the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, and the Minister of Finance. And from since then, there has been an impasse between the Office of the Auditor General and the Minister of Finance, where the Auditor General now has filed a claim in the civil courts of Trinidad and Tobago in order seeking constitutional relief that she has a right to retain attorneys and for her attorneys to be paid for legal advice on this particular matter. Because before the Parliament, there is a motion extending the date on which the Auditor General is to report after the report has been, in fact, completed. And all of this stemmed because there is a missing $3 billion worth of revenue in Trinidad and Tobago. The Auditor General, through her report, that we have seen on various networks and news agencies, is that there is a missing $3 billion in revenue. And the Minister of Finance, through the Ministry of Finance, has sought to provide various accounts to the Office of the Auditor General with respect to this particular issue. So on the 31st of January, accounts were submitted to the Office of the Auditor General indicating that Trinidad and Tobago revenue for 2023 was about $61 billion. Subsequently, the Auditor General was informed that there were issues with respect to the accounts and that the actual revenue for Trinidad and Tobago would have been $64 billion, which means that there's a $3 billion gap. When the Auditor General audited the accounts after the amended accounts were issued, she still could not find the $3 billion, and therefore that was in fact reported, and that is now a matter of public record. But what is interesting is this, is that the Auditor General has raised a very serious matter with respect to the backdating of the accounts of Trinidad and Tobago, because she had in her possession two accounts for Trinidad and Tobago as at the 15th of April 2023. And the both accounts were dated the 31st of January 2024, and I have copies of the both accounts. And these two accounts would have reflected various figures, but have the same date. One account was actually delivered to her on the 31st of January 2024 with the revenue figure of $61.8 billion. The other account would have reflected a figure of $64 billion submitted to her after the 31st of January 2024, but was backdated to the 31st of January 2024. Now, this raises issues with respect to misbehavior, and this raises issues with respect to fraud, because you have two accounts of Trinidad and Tobago with the same date, one submitted at a later date, but bearing a backdated certification and different revenue figures. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a very serious and grave issue that is facing Trinidad and Tobago. I saw Minister of Finance, former Minister of Finance, and former Governor of the Central Bank, Mr. Winston Buchanan, indicated that this is unprecedented. I saw former Minister of Finance, I believe Mariana Brown, also made similar comments on this particular matter. So there are two public accounts right now, one being backdated and the other one being submitted on the 31st of January 2024. Two accounts, both bearing different figures with a difference of $3 billion. And then what happens? You see the Minister of Finance, acting as Prime Minister, sent out a media release on the 7th of May 2024, appointing High Court Judge, retired High Court Judge, Justice David Harris, together with Mr. David C. Benjamin, a former audit director at the Auditor General's Department and specialist in IT, to launch an investigation into the understatement of revenue for the financial year 2023 and other related matters. And I want to go through the terms of reference of this investigation because that is critical and it is important to the proceedings. The first terms of reference is one, what circumstances led to the understatement of revenue in the public accounts for the financial year 2023 and what should be done to avoid a reoccurrence of the same? Two, the efficacy of the new electronic check clearing system introduced by the central bank in February 2023. Three, the efforts made by the officials at the Ministry of Finance and its various divisions to correct the understatement of revenue and to advise the Auditor General of the understatement and provide her with an explanation, clarification, and further information on same. Four, what was the response of the Auditor General to the efforts of the public officials described at C, and what actions was taken by the Auditor General in relation to the understatement of revenue in the audit of public accounts for the financial year 2023. 5. What are the facts in relation to the allegations and statements made by the Auditor General in her report on the public accounts for the financial year 2023, including the addendum and appendices, with reference to the understatement of revenue in public accounts for the financial year 2023, any other related matters, and the findings and recommendations going forward? They have 2 months to report. And the reason why I took the time to read out that is because it's missing one very important terms of reference. And that important terms of reference will be whether or not the public accounts for 2023 that was submitted to the Office of the Auditor General was backdated. Why is that not contained as a term of reference of this investigation? That is a very important matter. Now, this investigation in particular is a sham. Let me just say that from the outset also. Every time something goes wrong in this country, they set up a committee, they set up an investigation. And what happens? Let's give one example of Barataria. We had a commission of inquiry make recommendations for corporate manslaughter for compensation for the divers. Today, the divers have not received a single cent in this country. You think this investigation will take us any further? What we need is a proper explanation for the $3 billion that is missing. What we need an explanation for is whether or not a member of parliament today is receiving rents in the amount of $700,000 from 3 various agencies that was stated in the Auditor General report. What we need to find out is whether or not there's $1 billion of expenditure that cannot be accounted for because there are no receipts, there are no contracts, there are no documents to support that expenditure from various ministries. That is what the investigation should have entailed, not to determine whether or not the circumstances for the understatement of revenue. Minister Imbert is issuing press releases while this investigation is ongoing. So the issue we are asking is whether or not the accounts were backdated and whether or not those that conduct can lead to misbehavior in public office and fraud. That is what we have to determine. And then I have some questions here for Minister Imbert. And the questions are, now I'm not making any allegations against the gentleman, but I want to ask Minister Imbert whether or not he made private telephone calls to the Auditor General with respect to this matter. Whether or not a call was made on her personal cellular phone on the 3rd of April 2024 asking about this issue with respect to the amended public accounts. I want to ask the minister that. Is it true that a telephone call was made to the Auditor General with respect to this issue? And why, as a minister, if that is true, you made this particular telephone call? And I want to also ask the minister whether or not he made another telephone call to the Auditor General when she in fact outlined various breaches of the Heritage and Stabilization Fund Act in terms of the deposits of monies into that fund, whether or not another phone call was made to the goodly lady, and whether or not that call was made on the 15th of January 2024 at about 12:37 p.m. I'm asking the minister whether or not he called the Auditor General on her personal phone, and why, if that is true, why official correspondence was not sent to the Auditor General. And the minister should answer that, because that also is matters of grave concern. But today we send a warning to the public servants. Do not take chain up from this government. You have a responsibility to the people of Trinidad and Tobago and to comply with the law. We are warning the public servants. Just like how the Auditor General is standing her ground in this particular matter, we implore all public servants not to be bullied by public officials in this country. Do not be bullied by public officials, because we have seen a concerted effort to harass and bully the Auditor General. We have seen a cowardly attempt by the Attorney General and the Minister of Finance in the Parliament, making all sorts of wild allegations against the Auditor General about her conduct and about being in a state that she was bizarre. Her conduct was bizarre. Today I challenge the Attorney General and I challenge the Minister of Finance to go outside of the Parliament and make those comments. Because I think when Mr. Sean Douglas asked Minister Imbert a question at the post-media briefing of Cabinet, Minister Imbert said, "You feel I stupid? You think I want a pre-action protocol letter from Anand Ramlogan?" So today I ask the minister, if your name man, go outside and make those comments. If your name man, go outside and make those comments. That is what I'm challenging Minister Imbert to that this morning. Because you cannot use the cloak of parliamentary privilege in order to attack public officials. Stand by your statement and repeat it outside. Stand by your statement, and I place that challenge on Minister Imbert. And there's one other issue I want to just address on this particular matter, and that is a hot off the press media release dated the 12th of May 2024 on Mother's Day from the Ministry of Finance. Minister Imbert, I believe acting as the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, issues a media release, attempted sabotage of the water supply and air conditioning systems at the Ministry of Finance head office building for an incident that took place on the 30th of April 2024. I think that's 12 days ago. This is a matter for the plumber and the serviceman and the facilities technicians in the ministry. This is not a matter for the acting Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. This is a matter for the plumber. And then the release goes on to talk about the individual was charged by the police with malicious damage and remanded in custody. Hello, that is also a matter for the Commissioner of Police to be issuing. What you as the acting Prime Minister and Minister of Finance talking about who get charged and who sabotaged the water supply of the ministry, and they're telling us this 12 days later. This is a matter for the plumber. So the minister is trying to look for some sort of distraction in this particular issue. But we will be focused. The minister, through the ministry, have to account for that particular $3 billion that the Auditor General has indicated in this country that is not being found through her various reports. That is what the minister has to inform the country of. That is what he has to tell us. So putting these issues of the Auditor General aside, there's another matter that has to be ventilated here this morning. And it is a matter of very grave concern. And Trinidad and Tobago, those who are viewing, this is a matter that I ask you to pay particular attention to because it affects all of us. It affects our nation's national security, and it affects our safety of ourselves and our loved ones. What we have discovered over the last 24 hours in Trinidad and Tobago is that there is a gang, members of a gang, monitoring police stations in Trinidad and Tobago through CCTV cameras and very sophisticated technology and infrastructure. And that is something that is very chilling, concerning, and worrying in Trinidad and Tobago. I want to just point you to the Guardian front page. Gangs spying on cops. Munilal blame it on Hines. He calls for a full-scale probe into the illegal activity. Wants an inventory of surveillance equipment in public spaces. And lastly, the minister mum on matter. This is a very serious issue in Trinidad and Tobago, and I ask you to just pay particular attention to what I'm going to tell you here this morning. We have to remember what took place here in Trinidad and Tobago in March 2024. There was a shakeup of the SSA where the head of the SSA was sent on administrative leave. On the 1st of March, which was a Friday, there was an emergency meeting of the National Security Council. On the 2nd of March, we learned through the Office of the Prime Minister that the head of the SSA was sent on administrative leave. By Sunday morning, in the wee hours of the morning, the SSA was locked down by police so that no one can enter or leave. And then we saw subsequent newspaper reports that talks about a link with respect to what took place in March to the killing of one Andy Daniel, a CCTV technician operator who was the husband of the deputy head of the SSA. In November last year, Mr. Andy Daniel was assassinated while driving his panel van along the highway in the vicinity of Monroe Road. And Mr. Daniel, murder or assassination, according to a Guardian article dated the 17th of March 2024, entitled The Hijack of the SSA, 3 Murders Linked to Security Agency Probe, found that Mr. Daniel, a private CCTV contractor, was the husband of Juan Daniel, the Deputy Director of the Intelligence of the SSA. And what the article says, and it's not disputed, is that not only did Andy Daniel work for government officials, he installed the cameras at some of their homes and kept the administration rights to the system, sources disclosed. It was his administration rights to the camera systems, which include some of the country's top officials, businessmen, and gangsters, all named, which he could remotely tap into any given point, which made it a valuable commodity for intelligence and criminal elements for use and abuse. Guardian Media could not establish whether Daniel was also a contractor of the SSA, given that its business is subject to only oversight by its director. but learned that how much Daniel shared about his business with the SSA is now part of his inquiry. Very troubling state of affairs. Then another article written by one, I believe, Mark Basant. It was dated the 10th of March and updated on the 12th of March. Daniel murder may be tied to abuse of power, possible hit squad. And the article reads, investigators and other intelligence sources believe that Daniel's murder had to do with a civilian, not his relative, who once worked at the SSA. They believe that his murder was ultimately caused by the civilians' misuse of their power of responsibility, power and unfettered access to volatile security equipment and personnel, and possibly with the assistance of SSA officials, an investigator told the Sunday Express. According to intelligence sources, there are grave concerns about an apparent security threat following the infiltration of this special intelligence unit by civilians who they suspect were using it for nefarious crimes such as murder. Over the past 4 months, investigators have been pursuing several clues to Daniel's death. And then in the last 24 hours, Trinidad and Tobago learned that gangs were using state property, that being the TNTech poles, to install CCTV cameras together with routers to monitor various police stations. I have in my possession an official police report outlining some of these chilling details and facts. This report is dated the 10th of May, 2024. This is a very serious matter, Trinidad and Tobago. And the report says that the operations focus on the surveillance of cameras mounted on TNTech poles in the Tunapuna, Montgrand, Tunapuna area at Basanta Trace, St. John Road, Montgrand, without the permission of TNTech. Permission to mount any surveillance cameras or any other items, permission must be given in writing. And then we learned that there were a total of 23 cameras that were removed from these lamp poles. 13 cameras of the Tunapuna area and 10 cameras of light poles in the Basanta Trace area. And what we have learned also is that these cameras were being manned by gang members, and these cameras were on the lookout to alert gang members who may have illegal firearms and narcotics in their possession, thereby thwarting the efforts of law enforcement. All cameras were removed and taken to the Tunapuna police station pending further inquiries. And this report was referenced in a Guardian article yesterday that was released by the Guardian newspaper. And in that report, it indicated that the 23 cameras were removed. However, there was an exercise that took place somewhere in Bangladesh, St. Joseph. And what they found is that this location was believed as to be a monitoring hub. And this hub was outfitted with 2 large television screens, which showed a total of 62 cameras recording live feeds of 3 police stations in NCD, including the St. Joseph Police Station, the Tunapuna Police Station, and the Aruka Police Station. They recovered 23 cameras, but according to the devices that they found in the hub, there were 62 feeds, which means that there are 41 illegal cameras unaccounted for. Today, I call on the Minister of National Security and the Prime Minister to indicate whether or not they have uncovered and dismantled those 41 illegal cameras that are unaccounted for. This is a very serious and grave matter that I'm raising here this morning. We call for a full-scale investigation into this matter. There must be an immediate and complete overhaul of the national security inventory in Trinidad and Tobago to determine whether or not all of our cameras are accounted for. TNTech must also investigate whether or not there are any illegal cameras erected on any TNTech poles throughout Trinidad and Tobago. I also call on the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions to undertake his own investigation to determine whether or not any offices of the DPP are being monitored. I call on the judiciary to also conduct an investigation to determine whether or not any courts or court facilities are being monitored through illegal cameras. I call on financial institutions and banks to do the same to determine whether or not their institutions and their places of business are being monitored by illegal cameras. We have seen a scourge of persons being robbed as soon as they exit a bank with large sums of money. We don't know whether or not these banks and these institutions are being monitored. I also call on the Business Association and the Bankers Association of Trinidad and Tobago to respond to this particular matter because it is a grave concern for businesses in Trinidad and Tobago and the operations of financial institutions. Members of the media, it gave me no pleasure to raise such a grave matter in the public's interest. We call on the Minister and the Prime Minister to break their silence on this matter. There must be an emergency meeting of the National Security Council in order to ascertain the facts of this particular issue. It must be immediate, it must be forthwith, and it must be comprehensive. This matter affects all of us and our security of person and our protection. So members of the media, again, we have called time and time again on the Minister of National Security to go. And if this is not the time for him to go, there is no other time, members of the media. Minister Hines must go. This matter affects all of us. There are 41 illegal cameras, according to this report, that remains unaccounted for. We don't know where those particular devices are monitoring. So these are some of the matters that I wish to raise with you here this morning with respect to what is taking place in the governance of Trinidad and Tobago. So based on the reports, we have seen no arrest as yet.
But we have a cybercrime unit that track those things and see where they come from. When they found you remember the finding our phone once that was missing.
Right. The question being asked is whether or not the cybercrime units can in fact detect what has taken place in Trinidad and Tobago. And an example was given with a missing cellular phone in the past. We have the capability to do it, but if there's an infiltration with respect to our national security apparatus, then that will prove to be a hamper, an impediment on law enforcement work with respect to this particular issue. We need answers, and we need answers now to bring some sort of sanity, semblance, and peace in Trinidad and Tobago.
This is what's happening basically on the East-West corridor between your constituency and the constituency.
It even goes further, yeah.
Do you think it's happening in other locations, like San Fernando, Portsmouth?
I wouldn't put it past me. That is why I'm asking for all other law enforcement units and police stations to be on high alert in terms of monitoring and investigating whether or not their particular place of work, institution, office is being monitored. I think this is a very grave and serious matter in the interest of Trinidad and Tobago.
MP Hosien, I have a question here for the Auditor General. You've outlined a clear conflict of interest in the minister's investigation. So does the ministry have standing at all to investigate the Auditor General, whose job it is to investigate the ministry? Is the ministry violating the Constitution and law? And is this why you have warned public servants?
So basically, the issue with respect to this investigation is that we believe the investigation to be a sham. It was in fact set up by the Ministry of Finance. The terms of reference was given by the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Finance is an active player and also a subject of the investigation. So they have, in essence, established an investigation to investigate themselves. We have no confidence in the outcome of that particular investigation. I have outlined clearly the terms of reference of the investigation, and we have seen that it is designed in such a way, maybe for a a more favorable outcome to the government.
Is it unconstitutional in your view?
Those are issues that I wish not to comment on. There's an active court matter, and I think that is best left to the courts of law.
I have a question here on, this is from Gail Alexander from The Guardian. What are the opposition views on the situation regarding the ending of the COP's tenure on Tuesday? Should it be extended in the opposition's view, and how has she performed?
So with respect to that particular issue, the government has the say whether or not they are going to extend the contract for Mrs. Erla Harewood Christopher. On Wednesday, I believe she turns 61. So the government, she's past retirement, she got an extension last year, and she would have been granted a 1-year extension. I believe Cabinet met on Thursday. We didn't hear whether or not Cabinet further extended her period of contract for another 1 year or whatever. Tomorrow the Parliament meets. We were not given any notification by Her Excellency for the appointment of a Commissioner of Police. I am reliably informed that there's a party at the official residence of the Commissioner on the 26th of May. So that party will determine whether or not it's a retirement party or whether or not we jam in still.
A final question from Ms. Alexander. Will you contest your post as UNC Research Officer or another? Any comment on views on the poll by some of the MPs, like Mr. Rambali, Parry, Ms. Haynes, Alain, who called for the election?
Nominations are not yet open. They will be open tomorrow. If and when I file, I will be very happy to let you know, Ms. Alexander. The other question with respect to the comments of my colleagues, the leader of the opposition has clearly said that, and the political leader of the UNC, Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar, that the elections will be called. And they were in fact called. The elections are always free and fair. All are welcome to contend. We are a democratic party built on democratic principles. You can read our constitution and you'll see the principles that we have built our great party upon. I look forward to the elections and a very healthy campaigning period.
This one is from Prior Bihari of AZP News, or AZP News. Is MP Hosien making a link between the death of Mr. Daniel and the CCTV cameras found to be monitoring 3 police stations?
So with respect to that particular issue, and the reason why I raised that concern, it's because the SSA is responsible for the CCTV backbone in Trinidad and Tobago, as stated by the Minister of National Security as a matter of public record in the Parliament. I am not putting anything past what we have seen. There's one report indicating that Mr. Daniel's death may have been linked to the shake-up in March, and we have to also consider all possibilities and eventualities with this very grave and concerning matter. All. Okay. So that's it. Thank you very much, members of the media who have taken your time to join us. All of the mothers, again, who are locked on and looking at our weekly press briefing. Again, we say Happy Mother's Day. I ask you to join us tomorrow at the Morva Community Center for Missouri Community Center for our crime talks hosted by the Office of the Leader of the Opposition. It starts from 5 p.m. So we ask all to join us to be a part of the solution with respect to making our country a safe space again for all of us. I thank you very much. The details will be posted on all our social media sites with respect to the venue, dates, time, and presenters. So we look forward for you joining us tomorrow at our anti-crime talks, and we also have a sitting of the House of Representatives at 1:30 p.m. Thank you very much again.
Everybody now, let's go!